It was a wet Tuesday morning when Evelyn Harrow received the letter that would unravel everything she thought she knew about her quiet life in Bellmere Hollow. A sleepy village nestled between foggy moors and ancient woodlands that seemed to breathe with secrets of their own. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, with her name scrawled in elegant, almost archaic script. Sealed with red wax bearing the insignia of a key crossed over a raven S-wing an image that immediately made her stomach tighten with a dread she couldn't explain. Especially because no one had used that seal since her great-uncle. Victor disappeared 35 years ago under circumstances so bizarre that the entire town had woven tales of witchcraft, betrayal, and even otherworldly pacts to make sense of his vanishing, which had happened after a dinner party at the Harrow estate where Victor had abruptly stood up mid-toast, stared out the window as if something had called to him, and walked into the woods barefoot, never to return. Now, decades later, Evelyn, who had inherited Victor's dilapidated manor filled with dust-covered mirrors, locked trunks, and grandfather, clocks that ticked too slowly, was holding a letter that simply read, "The door opens again tonight, and so shall the truth," followed by a set of coordinates and the date. August 1st, 11:39 p.m., the exact time Victor had vanished. Despite the rational part of her mind screaming against it, Evelyn packed a flashlight, a compass, the old brass key she'd found under Victor's floorboard last winter. The one that fit nothing in the house, but hummed warmly in her palm when held under moonlight, and made her dreams spiral into impossible memories she couldn't explain, memories of crimson lakes, music made of whispers, and a door carved into a tree that bled when scratched. Following the coordinates took her deep into the moors, where the fog thickened unnaturally, absorbing sound and smell and color, until all she could see was her own breath and the occasional flicker of yellow eyes in the distance. And just as she was beginning to doubt her senses entirely, her compass began spinning violently before snapping in half. And ahead, through the mist, she saw it. A massive, gnarled oak tree, its bark cracked like ancient skin, with a door embedded in its base, the same door she had seen in her dreams, etched with the same Keondraven symbol, pulsing faintly with an amber glow. Heart pounding, Evelyn inserted the brass key, which turned with a satisfying click. And the door swung open to reveal a narrow spiral staircase made of stone leading downward into what smelled of candle wax. And iron. She hesitated, but the soft sound of piano music playing somewhere below compelled her feet forward, each step echoing with unnatural slowness, until she emerged in a vast underground chamber lit by hundreds of floating candles, where a group of people in 19th century attire stood silently around a long obsidian table, and at its head sat Victor, aged not a day since he left, sipping wine from a silver goblet and smiling at her as if they'd only parted yesterday. "You made it," he said, voice echoing. "The Harrow blood always returns when summoned." And then he stood, beckoning her closer as the others watched without blinking, and she noticed their eyes glass-like. With spinning irises like clock gears before, Victor gestured to the wall behind him, where a mirror as tall as the ceiling reflected not the room, but scenes from her childhood she never remembered living, including one where she and Victor stood before the bleeding tree as he whispered words in a tongue she didn't recognize, but somehow understood, binding her to a promise she had forgotten until now. "This is not your first time here," he said, "only your first time remembering." And Evelyn staggered back as memories hit her like a tidal wave. Her parents, death in a fire that left no ashes, the shadowy figure in the attic who whispered bedtime stories of realms beneath, the roots, the cryptic warnings from the village librarian who vanished a week later, and the truth she had buried with the help of a ritual Victor had performed, locking her real self behind layers of mundane reality. Victor explained that the Harrow bloodline had long been gatekeepers to a forgotten dimension known as Nithra, a plane of reality that intersected with Earth only during rare alignments marked by strange disappearances, time anomalies, and dreams of keys and doors. And that Evelyn was the final key, a living seal whose reawakening would either restore balance or unleash chaos. Depending on her choices tonight, she tried to process this. The floor began to rumble, and one of the silent guests let out a mechanical shriek as their skin peeled away to reveal a tangled network of wires and bone. And Victor calmly told her that not all who served Nithra were human anymore, and that she had to choose Join him in maintaining the seal or flee, and let the world above slowly be consumed by the creeping unreality already seeping through the cracks. She turned toward the mirror, now showing Bellmere Hollow blanketed in unnatural fog, with people wandering aimlessly, their eyes bleeding clockwork tears. And she realized the strange weather, the missing pets, the way time had seemed to bend lately, was all already happening. In a moment of clarity, she stepped forward and placed her hand on the obsidian table, which burned her palm and drew blood that seeped into the cracks like veins awakening. And Victor nodded solemnly, saying, "The gatekeeper remembers." Before the chamber shuddered and the candles extinguished simultaneously, plunging them into a darkness so complete that it seemed to erase her very thoughts. And when the light returned, she stood alone in the old manor's attic. Her hands still burning, the brass key melted into her skin as a sigil, and the clocks ticking in perfect rhythm for the first time in years. Downstairs, the front door creaked open, though no one had knocked, and outside, the fog waited patiently, swirling in shapes too deliberate to be mere wind, and Evelyn now remembering every secret. Every deal, every door smiled slightly as she descended the stairs, knowing that Bellmere Hollow would sleep safely tonight. For the gatekeeper had returned, but also aware that every door kept shut comes with a price, and something in the dark still remembered her. Name whispering it in the silence between seconds waiting for the night, the seal would weaken again.